This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska. Welcome back to another edition of Hunt Nebraska. We're sitting here in the cabin once more. Everyone's back in place. How you guys been doing?
Good.
Well,
right. Yeah, can't complain.
Yeah, we are fully into February now. We talked about that in our last podcast. Real quick, some introductions. Behind the buttons, our producer, Kayla Gattigan. Jeff Rawlinson, that is correct. The Jeff Rawlinson. Hunter Education, and right here, Hunter Education's own, I should say, Jackson Ellis. So welcome back. It's good to be here. Kind of sad. We are kind of closing everything up, kind of what we talked about last time, but we're not here to dwell on sadness because Hunt Nebraska, if nothing, hunters are optimists, right?
It's always going to be a better day tomorrow.
Yeah. We're on to the next season.
More birds will be flying tomorrow.
You got to kind of be an optimist. I mean, we're always in search of that experience, whether it's, like you said, decoying birds, flushing pheasants, that big buck walking through, elk bugles, whatever it is.
If you were a pessimist, you'd never get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
There's true words right there. Nothing drives a guy who likes to sleep to get up at 4 a.m. like the idea that this could be the day. Mm-hmm. This could be the day.
And you got to have that positive attitude.
Well, we learn it from anglers. You know, anglers are the eternal optimists, right? One more cast. This next cast is going to be the big one. That's why we 1,000 casts. I mean, you just know it's going to work.
And usually, I will say, and I'm the first one to live this as well. As hunters, not only are we optimists, it's nothing we did wrong. It's always something else. The weather wasn't right.
You're more confident than I am.
The sun wasn't in the right position. The full moon screwed us up.
That dang
There's
doe.
not enough of this. Game and Parks should have done this. I mean, it's all sorts of different things. It's never us. So
shouldn't have eaten that burrito. Yeah, I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going.
No, that's the gas station's fault.
Yeah. You had one word right. Anyway, go on.
Healthier foods. That's what we're talking about, gas stations. The Pop-Tart didn't warm up completely on the defroster, all that stuff. Last night, we took part in one of my favorite activities.
Food.
Involved food. It really did. But it was the potluck, what we call the Deer Hunters Banquet in the Minter Youth Archery Deer Program. That's been going on for 2.5 decades now here in the state of Nebraska. Kayla, I think that was your first
It
potluck.
was, yes.
Jackson, you've been to one or two of those, haven't you?
This is my
That
first
was his
one,
first
too.
as well.
That was your first as well. Well, what did you guys think?
Oh, it was great. Just to see all the emotions on the instructor, the mentors and the mentees, and having the parents there, it was pretty neat.
I have to second that, too. I like all the stories that they shared as well when we passed the mic around to all the mentors as well as the mentees. Just amazing stories come out of the program.
And it's fun, and I think that's what the Great Outdoors has to offer, a lot of good stories. You got to go out and search of them. Things don't always happen perfectly, but sometimes those bad opportunities, that bad luck, make better stories.
Well, this year was hard. I mean, almost all of them said this year was a little
tougher year.
It was a tougher year.
For the program overall, it was a tougher year.
Yeah, definitely. So, but they all definitely made the most of it. Deer were shot. They had smiles were had. Snickers were eaten.
There you go. Yeah. And that's one thing I always remind myself is, having hunted for this many years, I kind of have some perspective, some historical perspective of good years, bad years, up and down. For some of them, if it's their first year, it's their best year ever.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to big game, one hunt can change the entire season.
Yep. If
the one that you've been thinking about steps out, presents that opportunity. Now, Jeff, you've been a part of these since probably the very beginning.
Just about 22 years. I think the program's been going for about 24, 25. So, but it was always designed to be, as hunters, we love to go out and hunt, then meet around the campfire and swap stories and, honor our legends that are hunting with us. And that's kind of what this is. Everybody comes together at the end of the season, only on a bigger scale, and I agree. The stories are cool. The way the kids are honoring their mentors, the parents honoring those mentors and thanking them, and the food. Hunting is about food, right? It's about good food. And it's not about just going out and harvesting, but it's about the anticipation of good food, the actual cooking of good food, and the eating of good food. And last night, we got the best part. It was the eating of good food. And, man, What was your favorite?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So we had 4 long tables.
4 long tables
Crock-
of food.
Crock pots
Good
as far as
food.
the eye can see.
Just
Don't
lots of
forget
crock
the
pots.
dessert table.
the dessert table.
All kinds of designs in crock pots. You saw them all there. Yeah.
So I definitely have a favorite.
Okay.
And
It was the pheasant
It
enchiladas.
was the pheasant enchiladas.
Yeah.
God, those were
I don't know
good.
who brought those, but I'd like to see them make another one just to see if they could perfect
I
it.
wonder if it's Neil Chandler. He does some bird hunting. Out
I
there,
don't
or
know.
Maybe
If it is, he's
Jeff
my new hero.
Mysick or-
Yeah, new hero.
We may need to find out because that.
Well, Jackson told me those were the bomb, and he said you should go get one. And I went up there, and there was one left. Now, normally at a function like this, if there's one left, I won't take it. That thought never even entered my mind. In fact, I had my elbow up just in case someone else was trying to get to it. I was going to eat that last one. It did not disappoint.
No.
And how we ever came up with a cooking competition to become a mentor in the program is it's kind of odd.
But it was a good move.
It was a great move.
That was one of the changes you brought to the program, improving upon the program, Hershey. That was always a good move.
But Kayla and Jeff, you kind of brought it up, and this is really what I want to talk about now. I want to hear you guys' favorite stories from folks you have mentored.
Ooh.
I want to hear some of that. Now, I know there's some young ones in here, Jeff, so they might not have as much to draw on, but I know they've been instrumental in getting people outdoors, friends, family, all that type of stuff. So I want to hear, as the mentor, what have been some of your favorite stories of getting other people out?
Oh.
So, Jeff, I'm going to
Where do we
start with you because
start? Yeah.
I know you're going to have
yeah,
a bunch of them and give Jackson and Kayla some time.
Yeah, and there's been a bunch over the years, from adults to kids. And my favorite mentoring is always going to be my daughter. It's not the funniest story, but it's certainly one that's always near and dear to my heart because we didn't have that many opportunities as she got older to continue getting out when she started school and whatnot. But as a kid, and probably as of she didn't go turkey hunting last year, but up until that we have, and it's always a time that we sit in the blind and just goof off, have fun. And next to the time you and I sat in that blind over at Scott Hingstrom's place, and we were laughing so hard, guys, that I can tell you right now, there's no way any self-respecting turkey would have entered the woods. But we had a great time. Yeah, and I'll never forget it because it was just fun, and it was pretty hard laughter. But that's probably a second to some of the hunts my daughter and I have had. She just breaks me up when she gets goofy. But we have had times in the blind laughing so hard that you just could care less. You almost didn't want a turkey to come in because this was just too good. And so some of our best conversations over the years have been, laughing and talking, but mostly talking. And that's where I can get more of the inside scoop, especially as she got older, the inside scoop, who she's seeing, what she's doing, how's school going, that kind of stuff. So those are always going to be my best memories. But, there's been a lot of memories with, just little kids lighting up their faces when a turkey enters the woods or squirrels up on a tree and, we can shoot that squirrel. Yeah, that's what we're here for. I'm going to shoot that squirrel. Yeah, you kind of got to kind of feel, where do I shoot him? I'd shoot him up in the tree, and just those kind of goofy stuff with little kids that, drawing out the hunt, they just weren't ready for it. I remember one little girl that actually took with my daughter, one of her friends that went on one of our turkey hunts, and we had gotten her out shooting, and she was ready to go. And this little girl was ready to shoot a turkey, so I thought. And we get in now, and just getting to the blind was a stunt because we camped out, and it was kind of the whole deal. And that morning, I'm a minimalist. When I go to the turkey blind, it's a bow or a gun, and whatever fits in my pockets. This was not that case, and my daughter's not a minimalist, but she's not. This was bad. We had 2 kids with blankets that they had put all the snacks and put in the blankets, and they're carrying these blankets. You could have followed us for wherever you wanted to find it. There was just a trail of snacks and stuff that had fallen out. We get to the blind, and of course the turkeys are gobbling and already coming off the roost, and so we had to sneak under the blind, behind the blind, up underneath it to get into the blind. Now, that almost worked just fine, except for my daughter's friend truly did have a blanket wrapped as a knapsack full of all our food and creature comforts, might have had a chair, I don't know. And she's trying to get that into the blind. She crawls under, and she's pulling that. Of course, the blind is doing like this. and that's not the funny part. And the funny part was when we get in the blind, she had to leave the snacks outside, but we get in the blind, sit down, and turkeys are in front of us, and we're calling them, and my daughter tells me, Dad, hammer it. Come on, hammer it. And I'm like, I'm trying to be subtle, but okay. And and all of a sudden, as they're leaving, Big Tom comes back. My daughter's friend's sitting over here. I'm between them. And, all right, this is your bird. Come on, Brooke. You got this. This is your bird. Ready? And she's getting the shotgun up. and the bird's coming, and it's 50 yards, 40 yards. And I said, not yet. You know, I was waiting until it gets inside that 30-yard mark, and it gets in about 25 yards. And I said, Brooke, this is your bird. Anytime, just like we practiced yesterday. And Brooke has a change of confidence, and I can't see him. I'm like, Brooke, there's only one thing you can see out that window, and it's a big old tom. Yeah, and she's like, I just can't see him. And I said, well, let's go through this. Just like that pop can we were shooting yesterday, you know, gun up to your shoulder. Okay, look out. You see that bird? Oh, yeah, see his neck? Put it right on his chin. You see that? Just look right down that barrel, just like the pop can. I can't see him. I'm like, this is not. And now he's at 10 yards. I mean, he just kept coming, and he's right outside the blind. And I'm like, you can't see that bird. And she's like, I can't see him. You cannot see that bird. And she's like, I can't see him. I said, Brooke, are we having second thoughts here? Because he's right there. And Brooke, I just can't see. That's okay. That's okay. And so I take the shotgun over to my daughter, and I give it to my daughter. Now, I wasn't really going to have my daughter shoot the bird just yet, but I was going to talk to Brooke a little bit about the situation a little more without the gun in her hands, and maybe we could talk a little about confidence in the 15 seconds we had. And I said, now, Kate, can you see that bird? Boom! And I'm like, Kate's on. and I felt pretty good about that. Poor Brooke had no remorse. She was not ready to shoot a bird, and that's fine. But she did want to see my daughter shoot a bird, so it worked out. But that was probably one of the more when you got a bird standing there at 10 yards and you're trying to negotiate, it's hair raising. I'm going to be honest with you. It's hair raising.
Well, it's exciting. That's where we go.
Oh, my gosh, was it exciting. Even I'm sitting there, you know, this is too much. We got to do something about this bird, guys. But it worked out really well. But she just wasn't going to be a hunter. I can tell you that. But she did love the experience. And it's kind of like a good friend of mine, old Dick Turpin, reminded me one time, you know, it's not so much that the people I take out and teach about hunting, it's not so much as they become a hunter as much as they understand and support why I hunt. And I think there's some wisdom in that one because, you know, she walked away a kid who had no experience with the outdoors, really no experience at all. The camp out was a big deal for her. But to this day, I know she's, you know, speaks highly, you know, positive of hunting, and she doesn't have a negative. She likes hunting, supports hunting. It's just not something she's going to do, and I can respect that.
Well, I think it also speaks volumes, and I think you hear that last night and some of the other stories we're going to hear, that success for a mentor doesn't just come from the harvest. Yeah. We're not as concerned about that. There are some new hunters that are worried that they're going to be able to, you know, do it successfully for their mentor. And you don't have to worry about that because, a lot like I said, when things don't go right, sometimes better stories are made. Yeah. Yep. And you'll remember those for some time. So good stuff. Good way to kick things off, Jeff. That's cool. That's cool. Kayla, can you think of some?
I've only been a part of one mentor hunt. So I have one experience to draw from.
That works.
I can give a bunch from when I was little that I remember, but the hunt that I went on, it was the conservation officer hunt down in Indian Caves. I was going with a young lady from Kansas City. Her family doesn't hunt. None of her friends hunt. She just came with her friend because her uncle was a conservation officer and decided to bring him along. So it was the first night. None of the boys went out. It was just us two who decided to go out that night and went out and saw some deer when we were setting up the blind. So we knew this is kind of a good spot, thinking they're going to walk right in front of the blind. And so we were sitting there. It was me, Stacy, another conservation officer, and then this young lady who was between us. And so we were sitting there, not seeing anything, and she was getting pretty bored and wanting to go home, go back to the campsite, and she just was like, I think I'll give it maybe 20 more minutes. Well, then a minute later, this doe pops her head out, and so he's like, there's a doe right there. She's like, where? I can't see it. So then I gave my binoculars to her, and she's just tracking it the whole time it's over. She's like, it took a step. Oh, now it's eating. Oh, it's pooping now. Wow, that's cool. And she just gave us the play-by-play. Yep.
I like that.
So it was really fun for her. We ended up having to do a little shuffling in the blind so she could get a shot at it. And I remember she had the big rifle up to her shoulder, and I was watching through the binoculars of, can you see it? Yep. What's it doing? It has its head down. Okay. You remember what we talked about earlier? A good shot, making sure it's unobstructed. Yep. Does it look like that? well, no, there's a stick in the way, and I see some grass behind her, and she was really concerned about everything around this deer, and so walking her through that, was really fun. And then afterwards, she was just so excited, and she actually ended up field dressing the deer on her own, and so it was a really fun experience for her.
That's neat. Isn't it interesting? Now, I've been claimed not to be the most observant people. But when you go with the hunting with those that are, it is amazing all the things that are happening around there. I mean, even for me, you see quite a few things besides just what you're after. But boy, picking up the grass and the sticks, that's pretty good. Got to feel kind of good, though, one of your first times mentoring that you had a not only a successful job with that, but venison in the freezer.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you tell the rest of the mentors that weekend that, hey, look what us gals got done?
Yep.
I say that's definitely. Oh yeah, you got to rub it in their face a little bit. Yeah.
And then next morning, the boys were up early, ready to go because I can't let those girls show them up.
I bet so. Did your mentee then sleep in a little bit, or was she?
Oh yeah, yep. I think they were asleep till maybe 11 o'clock noon the next day. So, yep.
Well deserved.
Definitely.
Yep.
I think that's why some people hunt. I'm probably related to some that once success happens, it's sleeping in the next morning, especially during turkey season.
Yep.
When it comes, so that's pretty cool. So excited to do your next round of mentoring. I know you've done a lot of things with the big Becoming an Outdoors Woman program, fishing, and some outdoor skills and stuff like that.
Definitely. Yep. I'm super excited. I really enjoy that aspect of just being able to sit there, still get the adrenaline rush when you see.
Now, what are some of the things you see yourself being a mentor for next, or what are the ones, topics, species, whatever that you're most interested in?
I have the most experience in deer hunting and pheasant hunting, so I see myself venturing in those first, getting some other experience in turkeys and waterfowl especially. I don't know much there, but I can see myself venturing into those later as I gain more knowledge that I can share.
It looks like you got the dog for the upland birds.
Definitely.
Side of it. That's the truth. That's pretty cool. That's fun. I love these stories because you get to relive it. I think Jeff Mysick last night mentioned how you only get to take your first deer. You only get to shoot your first duck. You only get to whatever, but you get to relive it every time you take somebody new and they have success. And seeing it through their eyes adds some excitement.
Definitely.
It's fun for us. But there's just something cool about seeing it through someone's eyes for the first time.
Absolutely.
It really is. All right, Jackson, I know you've been involved in mentoring on a lot of different levels personally as well as through the job in the university.
Yep.
So I'm interested to hear what your favorite mentoring story is.
There's a lot running through my head right now, to be honest. It's kind of fun sitting here and thinking about all of them because as I think more pop up, but I've got two.
Okay.
So one, Katie's first deer was a lot of fun. That was a kind of a special one because she was all amped up about rifle season. We'd been practicing with the rifle, and the forecast came out and it was freezing. And it was I think the high that day was like 10 degrees. And we got out to the blind, and I was like all ready. She was all bundled up, and I had the heater, the little buddy heater. And carried it all the way out. I'm cursing it the whole way because no matter how you carry those things, they always have that little metallic tinge.
Yes,
to them.
they do.
So I'm like, it'll be worth it. It'll keep it warm. We get out there. I get everything situated in the blind, and I go to fire up the heater, get it running. We sit back. We're like, this is gonna be a good morning. And about 5 minutes later, you hear that ting 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 ting.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, Katie, I got bad news.
Yeah, we're out of gas.
We're gonna lose our heat here real shortly.
You didn't have a backup bottle?
I did not have a backup bottle. I know. Even
mentor faux pas.
Yeah, mentors. It's a learning process as well.
Yeah, it is.
But I was real proud of her. There were multiple times where we'd take turns doing jumping jacks in the back of the blind, but she stuck it out and shot her first deer. I think it was about 10:30. It was a nice buck. It was,
Right.
yeah, so
Well,
that was cool.
we've kind of gotten to live this. You've been mentoring your your fiance's now wife, for a few years now. And we've got to kind of watch this unfold. It's been really cool. You're a good mentor. There's no question about it. But it's been really cool to watch this unfold.
It's a lot of fun. And she shot 3 deer this year. Like
you're creating the ultimate hunting buddy.
Yeah.
I mean,
luckily somebody had to fill the freezer. I didn't do it this year.
And when she starts talking trash like that, you've succeeded.
Exactly. She is currently talking a lot of trash. Yeah.
Jackson, let's have some of my deer jerky. I'll give you some.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And one of the great things about mentoring is also the relationships you build. We talk a lot about experience and all this and that. One of the ones that I go back to is from Last Chance Deer Camp, 2 years ago.
Been a bit.
Yeah. Anyway, the last Chance Deer Camp. I got assigned, dad and a son, and they'd done no deer hunting ever.
Yeah.
The dad was kind of a big waterfowler, and as we're talking and your first morning in the blind, where they hunt, and kind of going back to their waterfowling. Come to find out, he hunted with my cousin while my cousin was in Kearney for college, and so he knew my cousin really well. And both him and his son had hunted quite a bit with my cousin, and so we kind of bonded over that. And he texted me the other day, and we were talking about our end of goose season.
Oh, there you go.
So, yeah.
Jeff and Kayla, you guys have probably heard of, what is it, the 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon? Mm-hmm. I think we can play that with Jackson. Jackson and or Julia. I think we can both figure out people that they know have worked with, related to here in the state, and work it within 6 to 7 degrees. I really do, because I don't think I've had anyone or very few people that we can't figure out how you know them, or somebody you guys know together out west, up north, over by Omaha, whatever it is. You seem to have a pretty good net. You hit on 2 things I think are really important, and Jeff, you kind of emphasized it as he said it, is you do kind of need to look at mentoring as creating a hunting buddy, don't you? I mean, isn't that the end goal? The way that you go about getting into it yourself was with friends, family, whatever it is, people you really enjoy spending time with. And we sometimes as mentors forget, we focus in on the harvest. We focus in, are they going to be successful? Are they going to see stuff? And to be honest with you, what kept us going during those low times and even do now are those relationships we have with people we hunt with. That's what gets us up a little bit earlier, keeps us going on those days or drought times when we're not seeing what we want to see, experiencing what we want to experience. We need that type of stuff. Now, sometimes it's for a weekend, sometimes it's for a few days, sometimes it's for a lifetime. But I think if you approach it like I'm creating a hunting buddy here, there's a lot of steps to go to that. You can't build a house with just 3 bricks. Yep. So build that foundation well. I'm going to share one, Jeff. You kind of jogged my memory. This was on a youth deer hunt. It was doe only at a state park in a state just east of here, shotgun only. I was fortunate enough to mentor a good family friend from where I was living at the time on this state park doe hunt. And it was cool. I mean, it was the whole educational component. They got things sighted in on Saturday. We did scouting. We got things set up. We heard conservation talks. We learned how to gut deer. We did all this type of stuff. And then Saturday night and Sunday morning, we got to go deer hunting. Now, this youngster came from a farming background, but hadn't hunted. Him and his brother ended up becoming really interested in it, and I feel very fortunate that I was able to be a part of that. On this deer hunt, he was carrying the old family bolt-action 20-gauge Marlin shotgun. And that thing could shoot. It could shoot those slugs that we were after. And we were sitting down in this beautiful oak forest there, and this park, the reason they had it was this deer. I mean, deer just destroyed this area. I mean, there wasn't anything growing from 3 foot down to the forest floor. It was just clear, just way overpopulated. And so it wasn't too long before we started seeing deer in the distance and moving around and all that stuff. And soon enough, we had a pair of deer of young does kind of walking down the trail towards us. And, I was like, all right, Josh, can you see them? Oh, yeah, I can see them, yep. All right, you see how, yep, they're coming the right way. Just let them come, just like you were talking with that turkey, Jeff. Just let them come. They're, 80 yards out. We need to get them within about 30 yards. Okay, all right. And they're doing what we all dream about, just slowly, like you were saying, Kayla, taking some bites, nibbling, browsing, doing little stuff, walking down that trail to a stop. And at about 50 yards, I told him, all right, Josh, we got to get ready. We got to get your gun up on the shooting sticks. All right. Okay. And he just sat there, gun across his legs. And he's just sitting there. Now he's right in front of me. We're kind of hiding behind a tree. He's right in front of me. And I noticed he doesn't do anything, but I was like, all right, he's going to start getting ready here. At about, under 40 yards, just like, all right, Josh, we really need to get ready on these deer. Start getting that gun up because it's still laying across his lap. Okay, yep, no problem, yep. At 30 yards, just like, Josh, are you going to get ready? Oh, yeah, I'm getting ready. He hasn't moved. I mean, the only thing he's done is breathe. That's the only movement in his. I don't think his eyes ever left those deer. At 20 yards, it's just like, Josh, it's now or never. He said, you got to get ready. And he finally said, I feel like I'm getting ready. I was like, well, you're not moving the gun or anything. I'm not. You talk about a case of doe fever. Yeah. Those things walk past us at 8 steps, not yards, moving. 8 steps. And this whole time, the gun never moved. He just, and just like, I think we're going to let these pass, Josh. I'm ready.
I'm taking them. You're really not.
Nope. No. They're 40 yards behind us now, Josh.
And that's the beauty of, you talk about the benefits of being a mentor to a youth or an adult, but, there's so many benefits to us, right? And that's one of the benefits is, that was his first deer. And he was living it. I mean, he was living it. And, we only get one first deer, right? Mm-hmm. But when we mentor, we get as many times as we want on the first deer. And, you can feel the exhilaration through that kid or that adult that you're mentoring because when they're sitting there going through all that, so are you. And if they're breathing heavy, you're probably, come on, this is going to be good. It's selfishly, I think being a mentor also gives me that opportunity to do that. And I just, it's about a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, I get to relive that first deer, that first turkey, or at least, even if there is no first deer or turkey, those first feelings that you had when you saw that first deer or turkey.
Well, I don't know how to describe it, folks, and I hope our listeners can understand this. Once you have a fun or exciting, maybe successful hunt, first thing you want to do is tell people about it.
Oh, yeah.
And when you look around, there's nobody sharing it with you. You're like, oh, just wait till I get home. Oh, just wait. On the way, I'm going to call my buddy on the way, or I'm going to text him. I'm going to do this. And unless they actually hunt or kind of understand that experience, there's a lot of people that we tell stories to just like, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you went goose hunting. A goose came into your decoys. You shot it. Yeah, isn't that what you're doing? But it's one of those things we just got to share it with somebody. I think that a lot of times, there's times where we got to hunt by ourselves and connect, recharge the batteries, whatever, disconnect from our normal life, and that's definitely part of it as well. But there's a piece of us that we just, as hunters, we got to talk about it around the campfire, on the phone, and it's just that urge that it's better shared. It really is. Even when you do go bow hunting, all right, a little bit more solitary, but having some people in the same woods talking back and forth is a lot of fun. Just seeing what they saw, hearing what they heard, type of stuff.
How many times have you been out hunting with somebody, friend, family, whatever, and okay, you're here, I'm here, turkey hunting, deer hunting, whatever, and you just, by mid-morning, you can't wait to get back to the truck to tell them what you saw, to hear what they saw, share the stories, or better yet, back to the campfire that evening when you get back and the stories just start coming. And you just can't wait to hear what they have for a story because, maybe you didn't see anything or you did see something to want to share. But that's a big deal. I have to believe that, Neanderthal man was sitting around the campfire just about every other night talking about the big mastodon, and they're sharing stories by the fire as it's glowing up on the rocks, and that's just commonplace. That's what they did, and I have to believe that hasn't changed in how many thousands of years. That probably I hope it never changes.
No, I hope not, because it means our tradition at stake if we don't share that, and if we don't share the stories, don't share the space.
And in that sense, then we all learn. We always mentor each other. Veteran hunters mentor because we all learn from each other in those stories, and as we hand down stories, we're always learning from the others.
Okay, I've got one more mentor story.
Go for it.
It's a
tell.
pretty funny one.
I've
So one of my good buddies from high school, we played hockey together, and then he took a year off 2 years off between college and high school, and actually played AAA. So he traveled around and played hockey really competitively. Anyways, came back to college. We lived together, and he said he wanted to try hunting. So we went on a pheasant hunt way out to northwest Nebraska. He didn't shoot anything. I shot a couple. So we were like, all right, we got to do something else. We got him his first spring turkey that year, which is a whole nother story in and of itself. But the best story is the rifle deer. He's like, I want a deer. He's like, I want something to fill the freezer. He was a big eater. Like that was what he wanted. So we were like, well, let's make a trip out of it. Like we did the pheasant trip. We're going to go out to Scotts Bluff area and deer hunt the second weekend of the rifle season. So first day, he had a shot at a deer and he missed. So that was kind of disappointing. The next day, we got a snowstorm. And we get out there and we're getting out of the truck. And first thing, he's like, there's something on the hill. I could see something. And I put my binoculars up and it's 3 bighorn sheep. Oh. So I was like, I was like, that's really cool. Yeah. Like knowing the history and the kind of the backstory behind him, I was like, I'm like, dude, this is cool. Yeah. And I'm trying to explain it to him and he's like, yeah, it's cool, but aren't we deer hunting? Yeah. I was like, okay, I get it.
Jackson's
I was like,
not figuring this out.
Yeah, I was like,
not a very good manner, by God.
Right. So we're like, all right. So they move off. And we're like, we head up into the hills, and now the snow's. I mean, it's a blizzard. I mean, you can't see more than 75 yards in front of you, and we're just slowly making our way through the pine trees. And we come out into this clearing, and I see 3 deer on the opposite side. And I was like, I'm glassing my thing. I was like, I think they're all does. I was like, do you want one? He's like, yeah, let's fill the freezer. It's like, all right. He puts his gun up and he must have fallen at some point and jammed the scope covers with snow. Oh. So at this point, the deer are looking at us. I'm like, he's panicking. I'm like, here, I had a tag too. And I'm like, here, take my rifle. And I had the scope covers, like the flip up ones. I was like, flip them up. And he's like, which one? I was like, doesn't matter. I was like, you've got an either sex tag. Yeah. I was like, it doesn't matter. Just pick one out and shoot it. So he picks one out, boom, shoots it, drops it. It's like, yes, like good. We're high fiving and having a good time, and we come up on this thing, and it's a 4-horn, just little buck, and he is. Now you got to know my buddy. He's a big dude, huge, like weightlifting, hockey player, giant guy.
I can relate.
Yeah, I was gonna say Jeff.
And
describe him, Jeff. Say Jeff.
For those not watching on the YouTube, Jeff.
And the smile on this guy's face as he picks up this deer with 4 fingers and holds it up to the camera. I'll have to find it on my phone later.
That's why I got to shoot big deer too.
We laugh about it all the time because the biggest smile on the biggest guy's face, and then he's just holding this deer with 4 fingers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's the beauty of it, though, right? I mean, it doesn't take a lot to get a person excited.
No, he was amped up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. Very cool.
Yep. All right.
Very cool.
I gotta agree. I mean, that is neat, and that's the one thing with big game. Sometimes I do kind of enjoy when their first critter, whether it's a deer, pronghorn, or anything like that, isn't the biggest. Or turkey hunting jakes.
Yeah.
Because it gives them a little bit more challenge. All right, I'm going to try to get a big doe next time, or I'm going to try to go for that tom, or something along those lines, just so that they can kind of grow. Well, if they start way too high, the all concern is, well, they shot a trophy, so they're not going to be as interested. And sometimes, but it's just kind of that rush. They don't really care.
Relive your first deer. It probably wasn't a monster, nope. in whatever term you want to say a monster. But I can tell you, for me, the first deer, a little 3x4, a year and a half old Nebraska buck. But my first deer, you couldn't have had more excitement had it been a trophy elk in the mountains, a bighorn sheep. It wouldn't have mattered. It was awe. I was just in awe. I was just high-fiving the yippee dance. And I mean, I was a kid, but I was just thinking, it doesn't get any better, right? Hunt of a lifetime right there. Yep. Yeah, and lo and behold, I've had a lot of those, which is nice. But.
The beautiful thing about deer is after you shoot them, they can still grow.
Yeah,
I've got a great example.
In infamy.
One of my best hunting buddies happens to be my younger brother. And I'm going to throw him to the wolves here just a little bit because he shot his first deer. And I can't remember if he was 13, 14-year-old when he did it. But I remember a year or two afterwards, we were at some sports show looking at deer on the wall and stuff, and people don't bring out very small deer. when they bring them to that show. Sometimes it's to score it, stories behind them, all that type of stuff. And we're going through and there's some, 150 class bucks up there, 160, 170. And pretty soon some of those shows, you see so much antler that you start like, that's only a 190. Why? I wouldn't even waste but my brother, who was probably about 15 or 16 now, saw a deer, probably, Pope and Young, Boone Cry, I don't care. And he's like, that was about the size of my deer. And I just started laughing. He looked at me. He's like, what? It's like, Gabe, it was a button buck. Maybe today it would have been. But So we've always given him a hard time about how his first deer just continues to grow. Yeah. And right now it's about record buck. I mean, Milo Hansen has nothing on my brother's button buck at this point. But it's part of the fun. And I do think it's that first thought, that rush of being a predator, that rush of adrenaline out there. I've had hunts where it was doe only, and big buck comes walking through, shreds trees, making scrapes, and my hunter's like, it's a buck. Yep. And that first doe that walks past, like, there we go. And so there's something about that's just in our nature. It's just interwoven within our being. So.
I've got this great video from when Katie pulled the elk tag. I've got a great video where the video starts and it's 2 bull elk, like nice big bull elk about 200 yards away, and you can see how big they are in the video. And then I pan to Katie standing next because she's got an antlerless tag. She's got a cow tag. And so I pan to Katie and she's looking the opposite direction of glass, and she looks at me kind of like, she looks at me kind of like, what are you doing?
All we keep seeing is these monster bulls fighting, and it's just, this is boring. It's just going, are you kidding me?
I think early on though, Jeff, I think that was one of the main complaints of the folks that drew cow tags.
Without question.
I was just seeing bulls. Kept seeing bulls.
What I tell people when I drew my first Nebraska cow tag was that, how was the hunt? All I saw was bulls. Just kept calling in bulls every day. Just got monotonous. But, the same thing when we started hunting deer in Nebraska years ago, when I was a kid, you would draw for a tag, and then you'd wait by the phone all summer long until the Game and Parks either call or send out. First, they'd send out the envelope. And you'd get the envelope. Of course, you forgot you even applied for a deer tag. Oh, my God, that's a deer tag. And you didn't know what it was because it's either going to be an either sex or it was going to be a doe only. And, you are a buck only. And you really didn't want it to be a buck only. You wanted it to be an either sex because your odds of getting a deer then were extremely good if it was either sex. I could shoot a doe. I could finally shoot a doe. But if it was a buck only, I guess to shoot as a buck. It was tough.
And now we pay extra for our buck
only
tags.
Now you're like, I'd like to get a buck tag. I can get 2. Okay, I'll take them both.
Buck only, $80.
But back then, a doe tag was pretty coveted because it upped your odds significantly that you were going to get a shot. You were going to bring a deer home.
So one last shot here. I want to know everyone's one tip, and you can't steal from the person ahead of you. One tip that you would give somebody that's getting ready to take somebody out.
So a new hunter to the new mentor.
Yep. Ooh. What for the mentor? Those that might be listening, or those that either have done it before. What's the one piece of suggestion you'd give them? What's the one golden nugget? We've only got time for one, and we'll start right here with Kayla. She's smiling. So,
you don't have to be an expert. I think I've learned that.
Excellent. Good. That's a good one.
I'm not
excellent point.
Good at really much hunting. I haven't done a lot of hunting, and so going out hunting, I'm always nervous because I don't know much. So how can I mentor somebody? But you really don't need to know everything.
That might be one of the best pieces of advice right there, because I do think that some new hunters, especially adult hunters, those that might not start when they're super young, they don't mind to see that their mentor isn't an expert, perfect in every way, because you do sometimes feel like I can't let that mentor down. I can't, as a new hunter. And here it's just like working through it. It's a process.
I honestly remember my turkey hunting mentor, and it's great advice because I did see him as that person. He didn't know everything. In fact, there'd be a lot of times he's like, well, I don't know, you think we ought to move? And I'm like, you're asking me? Yeah, let's talk. I want to chart the course too. And I felt like it was really more of we're on a hunt together, and I was learning, but it wasn't like, okay, Jeff, here's what you got to do, and we're going to do this. Now we're going to move. It wasn't like that. He didn't know everything, and he knew he didn't know everything. And it was just, we were learning as we went. But yeah, that's I'd good. Like that.
All right, Jeff.
My best advice would be look at mentoring as a marathon. and not a short race.
Not a sprint.
Yeah, it's not a sprint. You know, so many mentors want to have their mentee live everything on the one hunt. And I think it pushes too much into that hunt, too much pressure. I think you go into it as a marathon, and all the things you want them to live will develop over time, but you don't got to get there on the first hunt.
Good point. Good point. You're building that foundation.
That's right.
Excellent. Jackson.
Well, Kayla stole mine, so I'll go to my backup. But no, that was spot on. Just keep it low pressure. You know, they're not expecting a lot. They're more about, you know, the mentee is more interested in the experience. It's not necessarily the end all. But my tip would be comfort. Keep it comfortable. If it's a cold hunt, make sure they're bundled up. Make sure they've got, you know, the hand warmers, the belly heater, whatever you need to do to keep them warm, keep them comfortable. Same thing in the spring when we're hunting turkeys. Think about putting permethrin on their clothes beforehand, making sure they don't get ticks all over them. Think about those little comfort things that could kind of break a hunt. Less pressure on, you know, making sure the hunt's successful.
There you go. And that kind of ties into Jeff's, because, you know, don't take them on that death march that you enjoy, or in the worst of the conditions. Keep it fun, keep it comfortable. Yep. I think that's a big part of it. And I'm going to toss this one out, and it's kind of related to all three of yours, is, you know, think of it from that new hunter's perspective. Things that we do, we don't even think about. Sometimes now it's part of the hunt, it's part of the chore, it's part of the, you know, the fun's coming. Sometimes as that experienced hunter, we think we got to knock that out so they don't have to. Yeah. But sometimes that's part of the fun. Yeah. I mean, they want to learn some of this stuff. It's building that foundation. They want to know it. I go back to the first time I took my two kids on a goose hunt. We were field hunting. We had layout blinds. We set out the decoys and probably, you know, tried to get too many out. It was a miserable hunt. It was a nice day. The birds decided to switch fields. The only pair that we could call in landed 90 yards out in front of us and started walking and looking, mainly because they're, you know, my wife was in a layout blind, nice and hidden. I was in a layout blind, nice and hidden. And we had the sad thought of tossing our two kids into the same layout blind. Now that thing was bouncing around and moving, and weird calls that I've never heard come from a goose flute were being made from that right there. And that continued until they both fell asleep and just went silent. And I can remember on the ride home, my wife and I saying, man, that just didn't work. That wasn't even close to what we were expecting. That just, we were kind of disappointed. And both of my kids were just talking about how much fun it was. And man, can we do it again? And all that. That was the best day ever. And it made me realize, like, wow, two different perspectives. Yeah. I wanted to get this to go so well, and I thought it was more work and nothing, no payout. They just enjoyed the whole experience. And I think a lot of new hunters are that way, regardless of age. Setting out the decoys. There's a reason we do it. They're going to find fun in that. Painting the boat, brushing in the blind, scouting for deer and all that. And sometimes us mentors get caught up, and we need to take that all out of the equation, and all they need to do is walk in, set up. You got to keep them comfortable. There's no doubt about it. But at the same token, we're a mentor, not a guide. We're not that outfitter. And, they're going to rely on us for a lot of pointers and stuff, but let them go through and like you said, Jeff, allow them to do some of their own stuff. Yep. So
The extreme of that is kind of embarrassing, but when I was a little kid, opening the gates and letting the truck drive through, I thought I had like a big job, like real important.
You did have a big job. Truck does not get through
exactly
if the gate doesn't get open.
Yeah, so I'm sure they loved hunting.
If you don't get it closed, truck doesn't get invited back. So that's a big job.
Well, think about it. You know, dove hunting is a great example. My kids, you know, they loved running out and grabbing those doves. Mm-hmm. To me, it's like, great. That's just less steps for me. But it's just one of the things they love doing. They love picking up the shotgun shells. And I remember doing that along railroad tracks and all that stuff growing up. You know, one man's trash was another man's treasure. Yep. And that's the truth. All right, we're going to have to put a bow on it right there. Again, thank you guys for kind of sharing some insight from your personal life. So I think this is a good thing. Get out there and definitely try mentoring, and we can help out with that. But remember, take them hunting. I mean, that's a big part of it. It makes it more fun for all of us. Be sure to give us a like on Facebook at Hunt Nebraska and subscribe. Give us a comment, a thumbs up. It's going to help us spread the word about all the great things we have here in Nebraska and on the hunting side to boot. So until next time, Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.